Hello, welcome to the Global Inspector School Training Program overview. This is an informational video on how to become a home inspector in the great state of Wyoming. I am Matt Fletcher, there on the left, that's me. I'm a former high school construction trades teacher turned home inspector, and I've been a home inspector for over 26 years now, and a couple years ago I started my own home inspectors training program and association. And this is my pitch to get you to sign up with our training and not someone else's. So hopefully it works. Since you're interested in becoming a home inspector, let's look at some of the benefits of the home inspection business. So there's a low barrier to entry compared to many other trades. So unlike being an electrician or a plumber or an architect, you don't have to study or train or work under somebody else for years and years before you can go out on your own. Becoming a home inspector takes far less time. It generally requires some sort of training or certification, but that varies by state. Now in Wyoming, it doesn't appear to me here on we're in June of 2026. I just looked, and it doesn't look to me like you need a license, which is the case in Michigan, where I'm at. We're in the Detroit area, so we've never had a home inspection law here. Um, so anybody can call themselves a home inspector, but you should have some training, and that's what our program is for, because there are tricks. When I first started, I'd done a lot of renovation work and things, and I thought I knew everything. And it wasn't until I did some training uh, that I found out that I didn't know everything I thought I knew. There's also a low cost to get started in the business. So if you've already been a contractor, you probably have a truck and some tools like ladders and things like that. Um, and probably a home computer that you did your books on and schedule and things like that, maybe a website even. So that's a lot of it right there. So in addition to that, you need some tools like a good flashlight. A really good flashlight's important. Moisture meter. If you want to get fancy, you get a thermal imaging camera or a drone for doing roofs and things. I have all that stuff. Our students complete our course in about 30 days. Okay, so I believe there's 27 lessons right now. I add new lessons all the time. So I think it's 27 right now. So if you did one a day, you could be done in 27 days. And I've had people do two a day while working full time. So each lesson probably takes about an hour. They range from maybe 7,000 words up to 12,000 words. And there's lots of pictures and videos and things like that to watch. So try to make it a good experience, a good learning experience for my students. Let's look at some of the other benefits of being a home inspector. So, as long as people are buying and selling homes, you'll always have work. On average, people move about every 6.5 years. Inspection work cannot be offshored, and it cannot be replaced by AI. You can check your own state there in Wyoming, but most home inspectors report making $60 to $100,000 a year. So, if you're going to do it part time, of course, you'll make a lot less than that. And if you do it full time, yeah, you could totally make that kind of money. I've made that kind of money for sure. Um, but yeah, I'll save that for another slide. I won't go into that yet. A flexible schedule. This is what really drew me to it. So home inspectors most are self-employed. So you have control over like your work hours, how many days you work, the number of inspections you do, when you take vacations. You don't have to apply for vacation time. You just take it when you want. You can do it part or full time. Like I said, I've done it both. When I was teaching at the high school, my construction course, I had the summers off, of course, and every weekend. So I did the inspections on the weekends and in the summer. So and you can make a good income working alone. So my dad was a painting contractor and for like 37 years or something like that. So and I worked for him for a long time. So we had a crew of guys, and you need to have a crew when you're doing something like painting. Otherwise, you can't make any money. But home inspection's different. It's more like being, a master electrician or licensed electrician, where just one guy can make a good living with one van working out of his house. That's what I compare home inspection to. Let's talk about the training program itself. Like I said, I was a high school construction teacher, and believe it or not, I actually have a master's degree in teaching and additional certification to teach construction trades. And in my class, my students and I built a real house. And here in this picture, some of my students are observing the foundation contractor pouring our footing for the foundation. So in our lessons, not only will you learn how to inspect a house, but you're going to learn pretty much how they're put together as well. And that's very instructional in inspecting a house. If you know how it's put together, of course, that will give you a lot more insight while doing your inspections. So here you can see we did a lot on the house, but we didn't do every single thing. So we hired out the digging of the basement. This is the basement here. This is the forms for the footings, and he's pouring concrete in the footing right there. And then after the forms set up, then they come back after a few days and set the basement wall forms on top of the footing, and then pour the basement walls. Here's some more pictures from we called it building trades, from my building trades class. So you can see here the basement walls are poured. There's the footing. There's the sump pit that's installed, but no pipe going to it yet. So a lot of people don't realize there's a drainage system under a house, and it goes either into the sanitary sewer, typically, or into the sump pit, and the sump pit pumps it out somewhere to storm drains. So that there's a bleeder right there going through the foundation. So you'll learn about bleeders. This is the sanitary sewer line. So this is when you flush the toilet. This is where the water goes. So, the students and I helped on this, but we had a licensed plumber there too. So he would talk to the students about the plumbing trade and how to get into it and how much money you can make. Everybody wants to know how much money they can make. So he would talk about that, and then we'd help them put the plumbing in. So that was how the class was run. We did all the framing on the house ourselves. We didn't have, I'm a licensed builder, so I was, able to frame a house with my students. And we used very good material. This is Adventech 3/4 inch tongue and groove plywood. And these are called I joists, um, which are, very, very, you can span farther. You can span farther with these than you can with dimensional lumber. So you'll learn about things like that in my courses, how things are different, and how things have evolved over time. So here's a good one. This is the house we framed here. This is some of my students observing here. And this is the concrete contractor that came back to pour our slab for our porch. So notice the moisture barrier around here. Okay, that's up against the wall. So water can get between the slab that's being poured and the wood framing of the house and rot it out in between the two. So they didn't always put that moisture barrier there, but we learned in construction over time that we should do that, and here's why. Okay, so this is in a crawl space, but it could be a basement, it doesn't matter. But this is the rim joist, so this is that where the moisture barrier was, in other words, in that last picture. But there's no moisture barrier here because this was an old house. I think it was built in the 40s. And this is the rim joist, and you can see those holes there. That's probably powder post beetles. We have a lot of those around here. I took this picture if I didn't say that. And this is the concrete slab, the porch. And then this is the subfloor that we saw in the previous pictures that my students were nailing down. And it's rotted out right here because moisture got between the porch slab and the house, the wood structure. So that's how that happened. And there could be a door here too, I don't remember. So door thresholds are notorious for leaking water if they're not flashed correctly. Okay, they're supposed to be flashed. Um, so if they're not, the water can get in there and rot out the floor. So especially if the door doesn't have a storm door over it. Storm doors help a lot in this situation from keeping water off that threshold. So you learn about things like that. Here's another crawl space picture. So this is the entry to a crawl space in a house, and here's a nice downspout dumping water right next to it. There's the door. You can't tell from this picture, but there's negative grade here, so it's like a bowl right here. So every time it rains, water comes out of that downspout and turns and goes into the crawl space. You can see how dark the dirt is there. If a crawl space is dry, the dirt will be pretty light. It'll be like a grayish brown color. If it's blackish, it's wet. And here we are in a crawl space. I don't think this is the same crawl space because this looks like it's got I can't tell for sure, but it looks like it's got one of those corrugated barriers around there. So I'm not sure if it's the same crawl space, but it's the same concept. This is a wet crawl space. I took this picture as well. So what happened here, all this debris, there was a bathroom above here and they gutted it out and tore out the floor and redid the bathroom and they let all that debris fall into the crawl space, which is a no-no. They're supposed to clean it out. So now you've got rotting wood laying on the ground in this damp crawl space. You can see the water soaking up in it right there in the front. And this is a bad situation. This will attract wood destroying insects or organisms, as we call them now. Wood destroying organisms, worms and powder post beetles and termites and things. There's also debris in here. There's a pop can, the wood's debris. There's wires hanging down. That looks like it might be cable there. That could even be a pipe. I'm not sure. But any pipes that are not properly supported, any wire that's not supported and hanging down, that's probably cable wire there. That's all defects for your inspection report. And we teach you how to do that. Take pictures like this and then document it in the report. So there's several defects here in this picture. No vapor barrier, supposed to have a visqueen, which is a moisture barrier on the ground, because when there's moisture in the ground, it evaporates and it rises up into the crawl space and makes it humid, which you do not want a humid crawl space. So I'm not your only instructor in this, okay? Your other instructor is Dr. Joe Vaglica. He's a PE. His name is spelled Vaglica if you want to look him up. Joe is a professional engineer. He's also got a PhD in engineering, and Joe has taught part-time at Macomb Community College, the University of Detroit, and Wayne State University. And that's how I met Joe. I was in one of his classes. This is one of his classes, and I was taking it, and I took this picture. So this was materials testing or soils. This might have been soils and foundations. I don't remember. It was a few years ago. I've known Joe for about 15 years now, and when I was taking one of his classes, someone asked me, "Hey, do you know a structural engineer?" And I go, "Yeah, one of my instructors is a structural engineer." So I referred Joe to inspect a big building for structural issues, and then I came out there just to see what he was doing. And we started talking, and um, we decided to go into business together. So we started doing big commercial buildings together, and that was about 15 years ago, I think. So Joe, just so you know, Joe is the chair of the construction management program at Wayne State University. He helped start it. He graduated from Wayne State. They didn't have a construction management program. Joe went there for engineering. He's a civil engineer. So they decided to start a construction management program, and they called Joe up because they knew he had built a lot of things, and said, "Hey, we want to do this, and will you help us?" And he did, and now he teaches there. I think he teaches 4 of the courses right now. Okay, so Joe isn't just an academic who talks about construction. He actually does it. So this is a subdivision that Joe built, him and his partner. They went in on this together and bought the land and divided it up into lots. And Joe designed and built the road. Joe designed and built the drainage system underneath. Let's see what else we got here. So between Joe and I think we got all the bases covered pretty much in teaching construction and doing construction, things like that. I think between the two of us, we got like 60 years, 50 something years experience. All right, so here's one of the commercial buildings we inspected. This is a restaurant. And so not only do we show you how to inspect homes, we give you instructions. There's, I think, 3 or 4 lessons on commercial inspections. And they're all small to medium-sized buildings. Like I would consider this a small commercial building here. Okay. So just so you know, other organizations charge extra for commercial inspection training. And I mean, when I say extra, I'm talking about between $1,000 and $3,000 for a course to do commercial. Ours is included at no extra cost. So let's look at the roof of this building. Notice that decorative hump there. You see it from the roof here. There it is in the distance. So this is a flat roof. That's called the parapet wall. You have some sinkholes here because the roof's been leaking and it either rotted the plywood underneath or it could be that corrugated metal sheathing on the roof and it rusts out and it starts to make sinkholes in the roof. We got a big tear in whatever material this is. I don't remember what it was. It looked like they might have spray coated this roof, so we put all that in the report. So this roof would be a defective item for your report. And these roofs are pretty expensive. So you don't want to miss something like that. These are the vents for the kitchen, so you learn about things like that. Over here's the HVAC system. So this is it's not like a house. It's a little different. This is a heating and cooling unit all in one box there. So we teach you all about that stuff. Parking lots. We have a separate, so we have a lesson on small and medium-sized commercial buildings, a separate one on roofs. So that last picture was from my roof lesson, and one on parking lots. And this is the parking lot photo here. And then there's one on restrooms too that are a little different from your home bathroom. So in the parking lot, of course, you'll learn about how to spot the bad pavement. You learn that in the home inspection course as well. So you got a little bit of busted up asphalt over here. Drainages can be a big issue in these big commercial parking lots. They sometimes flood. Um, Directional arrows, parking stripes on the pavement, handicap access, the parking bumpers or curbs they call them. The bollards here are steel pipes and they're to protect the gas meter there. So we'll talk about that. Here's an ADA bathroom. So ADA stands for Americans with Disabilities Act. So there's certain things you got to have: a door that's wide enough for a wheelchair, a turning radius for a wheelchair, a handicap toilet with grab bars, a sink that's high enough to roll a wheelchair up underneath it so they can wash their hands. So those are all items you'll learn about. Sewer scopes. Sewer scopes have become a pretty standard part of the home and commercial inspections. Sewer scope inspections can easily add at least $15,000 to inspectors' yearly income. And you can get into a decent sewer camera now for less than $1,000. I just bought one for 500. I'm trying out. They're either going down or staying steady in price. You don't have to buy a $8,000 or $10,000 camera. My last camera was 3,600, and I think I've seen them online for between 5,000 and 7,000 now for the same camera. I bought mine about 5 years ago. So I always tell guys, if you're gonna get in the home inspection business and you've done a few jobs and you seem to like it and it looks like it's gonna work out for you, one of the first things I would do is buy a sewer camera. The last one I got is a Vevor, Vevor, and it was $500, and so far I'm happy with it. And if it lasts me a year, that'll more than pay for itself. So in our sewer scope lessons, we teach you how to do the scopes, of course. I believe there's 15 videos of actual sewer scopes. We talk about how to get the cap off. Sometimes you might have to cut a cap off if you want to do that. I teach you how to do it. Do the inspection itself. Not We emphasize not getting your camera stuck in the sewer line because that could possibly happen. The sewer lines obviously have germs. You could get hepatitis from sewer water, so we go over the precautions you should take and how to market it as well. Having a sewer camera will get you more referrals from realtors. It really will. When I first got my first sewer camera, I did the sewer scopes for free just to let realtors know that I had the camera, and that worked out for me. So we teach about things like that. All right, we got like 8 more slides here, guys. So this is an actual sewer line. This is a picture I took, and this is a cast iron line. You can tell by, it looks rusty, so that's cast iron. It's not clay, so you learn about things like that. PVC lines, Orangeburg lines, and this is roots coming in a joint here, and there's just a little hole poked through the bottom there, probably because a plumber came over and snaked it for him and just poked that hole through there. Sometimes you poke holes like that with your sewer camera too, but your sewer camera is not a ramming device and it's not made to do that, so be careful. You can damage your camera when you try to push it through something like that. But anyways, you'll learn about situations like this and what needs to be done, like hydrojetting or snaking with a bigger cutter head or whatever. All right, let's talk about our website here a little bit. We are a licensed post-secondary proprietary school in the state of Michigan. That's a mouthful, isn't it? Um, so this is our website, globalinspectionschool.com, and you may have already seen it if you've been checking us out and investigating us. In the top left is the Enroll Now button. So if you've made up your mind you want to enroll, just click on that button and you put in your credit card information. And then you get student access over here on the right, and there's a drop-down menu, and under there is My Courses, membership details, log out. So that's how you get in. That's Joe and me there again. Joe and I guess I should say. Um, that was a long time ago. That's a big building we did. It was a vacant building. It was a facade inspection. We got into that too. So once you get your student access, here this is the intro page. So course introduction. So it tells you things like um, if something's bolded, it's important. It's probably going to be on the test. If we repeat something in the lesson, it's important. It's probably going to be on the test. Okay, so it tells you things like that. So I wrote um, almost all of the tests. So we're not here to try and fool you. I don't believe in trick questions, but you need to know the material. So that's not terribly difficult. If you read the material and watch the videos, you should pass. The lessons are in alphabetical order, so it starts out with air conditioning, then attic and basements and bathrooms and bedrooms. But you can do them in any order you want. I wouldn't recommend doing the mechanical stuff first, like air conditioning and heating and cooling and boilers. I would not do those first unless you've worked in that trade, then you probably do very well on that test. But I would start with something simpler like roofs or exterior, but you can do whatever you want. If you fail, you can retake the test. So you have to get an 85 to pass. So that's a high B. 85 is a solid B. Um, so like I said, it's not terribly difficult. Very few people fail the test. They get less than 85. And I think it's because they didn't even read the lesson. They just tried to go to the test and take the test and they failed. Because there's certain things you have to know to pass. Okay. I made it that way on purpose so that you have to do the test to pass. Let's see here. At the end of the lessons, there's a test consisting of true and false multiple choice questions. There's also something called hot spots. I'll show you what that is. The final two questions are essays. So one of the essays asks you for your opinion of the lesson and how we can improve it. So it's a bonus point. It's a gimme. So if you say, I think the lesson was fine the way it is, don't change a thing, you get credit. If you say, well, I think you should say this, this, and this, you'll get credit for that too. And we might use your idea. I get lots of good ideas from my students. The second essay is worth 10 points. And what it asks you to do is explain how you would inspect the part of the building that you just learned about. And the reason we do this is because so many home inspectors struggle with writing reports. I've noticed if you go on the chat boards, you say, a lot of guys say, oh, what should I say about this? What should I say about that? I don't know what to say. So you need some writing practice. I mean, realistically, if you probably haven't written anything since you got out of high school or college or whatever. So most people don't write. So you get some writing practice. That's why we have some nice essay questions in every test. Here's the hot spots I told you about. So this is a sump pit, in case you don't recognize it. There's the pit, there's the water in the bottom. This is the main pump over here. This is a backup pump, water siphon backup pump. That's a Guardian brand pump there. I have the same pump in my house. So It'll tell you like above this picture, it'll say, can you identify the parts of the sump pit? So then you should know that this is the water pipe coming in for the water siphon back up. You should be able to recognize that this is a check valve here so the water can't backflow. And you click on the dot and then it tells you what it is. Okay. So this is like a little short quiz, informal quiz before you take the test. I think it's very helpful. So when I've been to teacher school, I've been to teacher college. So what they teach you, the main things is, well, classroom management. You can't teach anything if you can't control the class. And then the second thing is you have to entertain kids, keep them interested, and repeat things. 3 times is the rule for teachers. So students need 3 exposures to a concept for it to sink in. Okay, so one exposure would be me showing you pictures like this. Okay, another exposure would be me talking about it. Another exposure would be you writing about it in an essay. So there's 3 right there. So this is one of the essay questions here. So this guy was a good student. He did very well. So in case you can't see it on your screen, I'll read it to you. So this is the essay question. It says, using the information in the lesson, write a few paragraphs on how you would go about inspecting a roof. Explain what types of things you would be looking for. You could also make a checklist as part of your answer. So if you want to make a checklist, and that will help you in your, when you start doing your inspections, you need to have a checklist. So this guy, he put on here, I would turn on any ventilation that was venting through the roof. He said to the roof, but he meant through the roof, so that's fine. And you know why I said that? Because I told him to do that in the lesson. I said, when you first get there, get your contract signed, go over what's going to happen with the customer, and turn on all the ventilation things that blow out of the house. So if you got a clothes dryer, turn that on. If you got a bathroom exhaust vent, turn that on. They may vent through the roof. You don't know that yet. And I always started on the roof. Some guys don't. They claim they don't because they might fall through the roof, but I can tell by looking at a roof if it's going to hold me or not. So I always start on the roof. So that's why he wrote that. So you turn on all the vents that blow out of the house, and then you go up on the roof. And if you see vents on the roof, then you hold your hand up to it and see if the air is coming out of the dryer or the bathroom fan or whatever. Okay. And that could vent out through the side of the house too. And you're going to do that next. After you do the roof, you're going to do the exterior of the house typically. Then he says, I would first take pictures of the roof from many different angles. I would describe in my report what type of roofing material is used and how the roof was inspected on foot or with a drone. He meant on the roof. So, I gave him full credit. This was a good answer. So he had several paragraphs here. And all he did was repeat back to me what I said in the lesson. That's all I'm looking for, guys. Okay. You don't have to be Ernest Hemingway. Just repeat back to me what I said in the lesson. Uh, this is another exposure to the material. Like I said, you need 3 exposures. And you get your writing practice here. So that's why I designed the lessons this way. I think I have the best training program out there. So that's my biased opinion, but all right. The road to success is always under construction. So, in other words, if you've been in the trades, I don't know, roofing or setting tile or whatever it is, and you want to try something different like being a home inspector, you got to up your skills. So, you really do need some training, okay? Just don't go out there and start doing it on your own. You need some training. Um, our students finish the course in about a month, like I said. And so you get your certificate when you complete all the courses, and then you'll be a certified home inspector through us. Again, our website is globalinspectionschool.com. Go there and check it out if you haven't already. We got a YouTube channel, Global Inspection School, or search on Matt Fletcher on YouTube. You'll find me, or Global Inspection School. We've got over 500 videos on there. All right, let's review. Uh, with us, you get a complete home inspection course from foundation to roof with very Very, very qualified instructors. I think we're the most qualified instructors out there on the web. If you find someone with more qualifications, let me know. I'd like to know about it. Um, so that's home inspections. You also get commercial, medium and small and medium-sized commercial buildings, which that's 99% of what a home inspector is going to get. So when you start doing home inspections, realtors also sell commercial buildings too. So they might call you and say, "Hey, do you do commercial?" And you can say, "Yeah, I've got training in commercial. I've got a certificate of completion. I can do a commercial inspection for you." Um, we have done like I think the biggest building we did was 16 stories, and that was a facade inspection. And that does include some inside work and going on the roof, but that's because I have Joe as my engineer, and so we're able to do things like that. But 99% of home inspectors are going to get like that restaurant I showed you in the slideshow, and stores, party stores, we call them, liquor stores, churches. We've done a lot of churches. So that's your meat and potatoes there. Um, when I did my commercial inspection training, I did it through Carson Dunlap like 15 years ago, and it was a good course. I'm not saying anything bad about them. They're nice people, they're good people. The course was good, but a lot of it, I had already been doing commercial inspections, and I was sitting there thinking to myself, a lot of this is not really applicable because he was talking about airports and runways and, 20-story buildings and Carson Dunlap's an engineering firm, so they do things like that. But the average home inspector, you're not going to run into that. So I tried to focus on what I thought was important in the commercial inspections. What you're actually going to see. It's very practical stuff. Okay. So you also get the sewer scope training. Two highly qualified instructors, like I said, all for $450. That's the best deal on the web. It is. Last slide, guys. That's our logo. Global Inspector Certification Association. There's our phone number if you want to call that number or text. That's a cell phone. You can call or text if you have any questions. Thanks for watching, and we hope to have you as a student. I am Matt Fletcher.